Hi, I'm Raaf, and I'm so happy that you're here. Welcome at the second episode of my three-part mini-series about my modular setup, how I patch and design it. Today we are going to look at my quartet and at the effects section. So let's waste no time and take a look at my case. Okay, so let's have a look at the second section of my setup, and that is the STO quartet, and it consists out of 4 STOs by Make Noise, the Atlas filter by Vostok, the Quadrat and Duat mixer and attenuators by IntelliGel, the Quadrax by IntelliGel, 2 Optomix Lowpass Gate modules by Make Noise, 2 buffered molds, and the Hive mixer by Vostok. And what I really love about this quartet is that even though all 4 modules are the same, they can each produce their different waveforms by adjusting this shape knob, and they can play different melodies and move in different rhythmic directions. So the system can also be polyphonic, it can be one sound, or it can be many sounds at the same time. But because all 4 voices come from the same type of oscillator, they always feel like they belong in the same family. So even when they sound different, there's always this sense of one shared identity. And for me, that's very similar to a string quartet or a brass quartet. The instruments have different roles, textures, and timbres, but together they sound like one coherent body. And that's why I also use 4 identical filters and 4 identical low-pass gates. So the sound stays homogeneous while I can still shape differences in texture, timbre, and waveform. And the balance between unity and variation works really well for the kind of music I make. So now that you know the musical idea behind the quartet, let me walk you through the actual signal flow. And what I'll do is I'll patch one STO, and because these 3 are patched identically, and this one is my bass voice, it has a little bit of a different signal flow, but I'll come back to it later. So the output of the STO is going into one of the filters of Atlas. So every voice has a direct dedicated filter. And then from Atlas, it goes out into the Optomix. And the Optomix receives an envelope from the Quadrax module, and it goes into the control input. And then the output of the Optomix is going into a buffered mult. And it's very important that you use buffered mults with audio signals, otherwise you will lose high frequencies, or it may not be as in tune, so a buffered mult is really required. So this signal is multiplied now. One of the multiplied signals is going into a channel of the Hive mixer. And what I really like about the Hive mixer is that it also has panning, which also can be CV controlled, so you can create a really beautiful stereo image. Now the second copy of my multiplied output is used for effects. 3 of those outputs of my STO go into Quadrat, and where I control how much of each voice is sent into the mimeophone delay. So let's make an output towards the mimeophone. And the mimeophone is going into a separate channel on my mixer, channel 4. Now I can blend the dry Hive signal and the wet delay signal directly into the mixer. So the 4th STO, which is usually my bass voice, is patched a little bit differently. So let's patch it up first. Instead of going into the Quadrat for the delay, it goes from the mult into my Duat module. So it has its own volume control, and then it goes from the Duat direct inputs of my Ostrava mixer. And because it's got its own volume control, with the direct inputs, I actually create an extra mixer channel. And it doesn't have any effects, but a bass voice normally doesn't need reverb or delay. But sometimes I do want to use this voice, not as a bass voice, but as a melodic voice. And that's why I've also patched it into channel 4 of Hive. So let's patch the rest of the quartet. So I've patched up my entire quartet, and it's a bit of a spaghetti, and I can clean this up later. The only thing I still have to do is patch the CV outputs of my sequencer into the volt per octave inputs of the STOs, and the gate output of my sequencer into the trigger inputs of the Quadrax. And that's my envelope generator. And I have to say, a huge part of the expressiveness from this quartet comes from the envelopes generated by Quadrax. It's a module I've grown deeply attached to. It's extremely direct and very performative, but at the same time it can become incredibly complex, and it can generate everything from short, snappy, sharp and effective envelopes to more long and detailed evolving shapes, using its different modes and the CV inputs on the module. I would honestly say that a big part of my signature sound comes from the envelopes generated by Quadrax and, of course, the Lowpass Gates that I use, which keeps everything organic and bouncy and breathing and alive. Okay, so let's listen to the quartet. And what you hear now, it sounds like one oscillator playing one melody, but it actually are these three oscillators that are being played in a Hocketing fashion by my sequencer. So every subsequent note is sent to a different oscillator. And because the settings of my filters and my envelope and the optomixes are mostly the same, it sounds like one oscillator playing. But when I start to change one of these parameters, you'll start to hear a difference. So I'm gonna change the envelope of the yellow SCO now. So you can already start to hear a difference. So let's change the waveform of the third, the purple. So now you've already are hearing that it's actually three different oscillators playing. They come from the same family, so they sound alike, but it's different. Okay, so you can, start to play with this in a very musical way. So let's add the mimeophone reverb to this. So now we've already got a beautiful tapestry of SCO sounds playing. And let's just play a little bit with the envelopes and also with the waveforms. And let's listen what happens when I do this. So yeah, you've already got like this beautiful tapestry of moving, rhythmical, melodic goodness going on. So let's add some reverb. So yeah, once I start to play around with my envelopes, the filters, and the evolving melody, it's starting to get really interesting, and you can really make a build-up. Let's add the bass. when I change the parameters, the sound and the feel changes drastically with it as well. I could go on for quite a long time like this, but I'll stop. So yeah, maybe you can see and hear the power of my quartet. Really, the envelopes, the low-pass gate, the filters, and the reverb and delay work so well together, and I can create these epic build-ups with arps and beautiful motor-like melodies that really take my compositions and songs forward. So that was the explanation of my quartet, and it really is the melodic engine of my system, and I love it so much. I do think my signature sound comes from this quartet, and I've perfected it over the years. I do have to point out that low-pass gates play such an essential part in this sound. So if you love the snappy, bouncy, organic sound of this quartet, do know that you have to look into some low-pass gates. Okay, so let's move on now to the effect section. Okay, so let's have a look at the third section of my setup, which is the effect section. And it consists out of two modules, which is the mimeophone by Make Noise, which is a delay, and the Desmodus Versio by Noise Engineering, which is a reverb. And the Desmodus Versio is connected to the send return of my mixer, which means every channel in my system can be sent into this beautiful reverb. So the entire mix can be placed inside the same space. And the mimeophone is fed by 3 voices from my quartet that go into the quadrat, but there's also a 4th input on this quadrat, and I patch my solo voice, the harmonic oscillator by verbos, into this, and that means I can also run the verbos through the delay and let it dissolve into echoes and time-based textures. What I really love about these two effects is that they are not just a reverb and a delay, they go far beyond their traditional roles. What I especially love about the mimeophone is the way it works with different zones. So you can change the zone, you can see the color change here when you do that. And each zone has its own musical delay, and the module actually remembers what you play in each different zone. So you can really weave an intricate evolving structure with this delay over time. And the Desmodus Versio goes way beyond the universe of a normal reverb. It can stretch sound into endless drones, and it can smear transients into vast clouds and completely transform what you feed into it. And because it can drone, I use it for transitions as well when I play live, which is really useful. And it also has this famous FSU button, or I should say infamous. I will call it the chaos button because it needs to be used with attention, and when you press it, things can get beautifully out of control. But when I use my STO quartet on it and I press the FSU button, it can actually sound like the swelling of a string orchestra, which I really love, and you could also hear that when I was playing my quartet in the previous example. And what I really love about these two modules is how deeply performative they are. They are not set and forget effects at all. They are instruments you can actually play live, and you could hear them work their magic in the previous example when I was playing my quartet. So this was episode 2 of my 3-part mini-series about my modular setup, how I design and patch it. And I hope you've enjoyed yourself and found some inspiration for your own patches. If you've got any question about my effect section or about my quartet, do leave a comment and I'll answer them all. If you enjoyed this video, you could consider to like it and to subscribe to my channel. It really helps me to create more content for you. Have a nice day and see you in the next one.